This is Johnny D, the motivational cowboy, with this week's Outstanding Life podcast. And this one is titled Strengthening Lives with Love. And in the studio with me right now is the producer of the Outstanding Life podcast, Paul Long. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Johnny.
Awesome. And then Joshua Spears, he is in the house right now. What's up, Joshua?
How you doing, Johnny? Good to be here.
Man, I am so looking forward to this podcast. Joshua, you are the reason why this podcast all came together, and I want to thank you for that. We are going to dial in right now on the phone in Baltimore. We are going to be talking to Bill York. And Bill, you there?
I am, Johnny. Good to see you guys this morning.
Yeah, man. What a blessing it is, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast. One, Bill, your story is very emotional, but it's one of those stories that that needs to be talked about. And I never ever met a man that is such an open book when it comes to this. And Bill, we're going to jump right into this. And I titled this podcast "Strengthening Lives with Love," because that is your mission, your purpose. And I want you to tell everybody, just start your story, man.
Well, Johnny, my story starts off, I guess, really last July 28th of 2018. My 20-year-old son took his own life through suicide. And obviously that impacts everybody in the family. But our family, my wife and I, decided we weren't going to sit back and just grieve. We were going to, do something, change the world, keep other folks from having to join this club. So we founded the Joshua York Legacy Foundation for Strengthening Lives with Love. We are out there trying to raise awareness, raise the conversation, and prevent further suicides in any way we can. Every day.
Bill, and that is something that is so cool with you. And I say cool because, and I say this with like smiling, because since I've met you and been talking to you on the phone, I've asked you some really tough questions. And I said, hey, I'm sorry if I offend you. And you've always said to me, Johnny, stop. No, this needs to be talked about. You're not going to offend me. I want people to understand it's okay to talk about these things. I want you to talk about Joshua. What was Josh like?
Josh was, he was driven. He was part of the LGBT community. He had his sophomore year at James Madison University in Virginia, and then transferred to University of Maryland. He was on the dean's list his last semester. At age 19, after his first year of college, he studied for 2 weeks, passed the real estate exam, and became a real estate agent, and had just sold his first house 3 weeks before his passing. He had a personality that took care of everybody else. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get the mental health care that he needed for himself, but he was the life of a party. He had these deep blue eyes that just drew everybody in, and that just started every conversation.
And I am looking at a picture of Josh right now. He was and is a good-looking kid. What was in high school? You said that your son was gay, and did he come out in high school?
He actually no, he didn't. We knew. He stopped bringing his friends around the house, no matter how many times we tried to set up, a pool party or a cookout. He just didn't bring his friends over, and so we knew. My ex-wife is gay, and we have plenty of gay friends. You know what to look for when you have an extended family that includes people in the LGBT community, and so we knew. We were just waiting for him to talk to us. And, my wife had dropped many, many opportunities for him to have that open conversation, but he never felt comfortable to do that. He actually, in his senior year, was sexually assaulted while he was trying to find someone in his community to relate to. And, of course, that certainly made it clear, but he never truly came out until he was going away to college. And, it's kind of a funny story, Johnny, because, we already knew.
Joshua, one of the big things that, and the reason why Joshua is sitting here right now is you and Joshua came together because, I mean, obviously Joshua does a lot of speaking at schools and stuff. And one thing that your foundation does is you want to educate people about suicide, correct?
Correct.
So your
Every way we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to tell you, Johnny, within the first week of the passing, after we buried our son, and this is how Josh and I met, and I'm so thankful that I met him because he's been such an inspiration for me. We were trying to figure out what to do, and I saw part of his podcast on or his presentation on Facebook, and it was about midnight. My wife and I were sitting out on the front porch, having a beer late at night, and I saw it, and I was like, I looked at my wife, I'm like, you gotta watch this. I've got to reach out to this guy. So I texted him. This is at midnight.
Right.
And he immediately came back to us, and we talked and texted for 15 minutes or so, and it might have been longer, but then he said, call me in the morning. And that was a pivotal moment for us because I ended up spending, I know it was at least an hour and a half, but probably longer with Josh, and talking about what he does, why he does it, explaining what we were going through. And at that point, I just wanted to talk to people. And so he gave me the encouragement and the strength to, really start diving in head first, realizing that this can be done.
Right.
And the more voices we get, the better the message.
You were telling me a story about your son being an entrepreneur, and tell me the story about him selling pencils and gum and gobstoppers out of his locker. And how old was he?
He was in 8th grade, and he would take his money that he had and go buy $20-$30 worth of candy, hide it in his locker, and just he was the bubblegum man at school, and I kept telling him, you're going to get suspended for selling gum. What are you doing? He's like, Dad, I'm making money. They pay me like $2 for a stick of gum. That's how he thought. He was all about having his own business.
Yeah. Joshua, how tough is it for you when people reach out to you? I mean, you've done a lot of presentations and stuff like that on suicide, because you've been through your own struggles.
Yeah.
And tell us what it was like when you got this crazy guy, Bill York from Baltimore, texting you at midnight.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that it was encouraging for you, Bill, because it was also encouraging for myself as well. Because, as a speaker, we do what we do because we want to help people and we want to, touch people's lives, and we want to help people that are in rough spots, whether it's suicide prevention or bullying or motivational speeches. And so when I get somebody reaching out to me, it makes me feel validated in my mission that I'm helping other people. And sometimes that's doing a talk for them, and sometimes it's just talking to them and encouraging them on their own journey. So it was really exciting for me to see the impact of that. And, when people reach out, I just always try to make myself available, because that's the gas in my motor, is try to help people. Sometimes it's from the stage, and sometimes it's sitting on my deck on the phone, so it's really all about that mission.
I remember the phone call the next day.
Yeah.
Joshua, you called me and you're like, man, this is like so cool. And because you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter when people reach out and they want to use us.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is why we do what we do, is because we want to be used.
Well, also too, Bill, your story, it's inspiring for me. And I know in some cases with what Johnny does too, is to remember that there are hurting people out there, and our mission is to help those people. And sometimes, it stops it from becoming a job when you realize that people are involved and that you can really make an impact. So I'm thrilled that it was encouraging for you and the way you've grown your organization and the way you've responded since then. It continues to be a very big source of inspiration for myself and others.
Bill, how many days after your son took his life did you start the foundation? Like, how did it, I mean, were you grieving and you said, no, listen, I'm not going to take this, and you took the bull by the horns? How long did it take you to do that?
So the day after we buried our son, my wife and I, again, were sitting on the porch, and she says,
were you having a beer?
Not that day. It was too early. I'm sure later we did. But, we were sitting there on the porch, and she says, I want to do something. I can't stand it. And I'm like, I feel like screaming from the mountaintops. And I said, what do you want to do? She says, I want to do a scholarship at a school. And then I said, do you want it like a one-time scholarship or an annual scholarship? She was, I want it every year. And I said, well, do you want it, as long as we're alive, or do you want it to be perpetual? And she gave me this funny look and says, I want it to be perpetual. What does that matter? And I said, well, we can fund it ourselves every year, and, we can afford to do that. But if you want it to be perpetual, we have to raise funds. And if we got to raise funds, we have to create a nonprofit foundation. So that's where the idea started. And then a friend of mine who owns two friends, actually one relative and a very close friend, reached out to me and said, hey, we're doing a suicide prevention concert in September. I'd like to talk about Josh. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, can I show up and try to raise some funds? And I explained to him the path we were starting. And he says, well, I'm playing at this local bar, Riverwatch, in 2 weeks. That was our first fundraiser. Hadn't even set up the foundation yet. And we raised about $1,800 that night.
Wow.
Nice.
Which, just blew. I mean, they told me, don't expect more than 300. Most we've ever raised is 800, and it was at a expensive yacht club. And here we just blew it all out of the water. And at the same time, my sister wanted to set up a GoFund or a donation page, and was going to have the funds going to AFSP. And I'm like, Bert, don't do it. Let's get a GoFundMe up. I put a GoFundMe up that same week for $5,000 as a goal, because I knew it would fund our scholarship for years to start out with. And in 30 days, we raised a total of $8,000.
Wow, that's awesome.
So on the 27th of August, literally 30 days later is when we filed officially the foundation. And 67 days later, we got our IRS determination letter, which is, in the nonprofit industry is really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, so obviously the situation that you and your family found yourself in with your son, obviously is very painful, and each person's going to react to that a different way in your spot. Tell us a little bit about how your action and your starting this and your drive, what impact has that had on your grieving process with your son?
Yeah, I won't lie to you. Every day's a journey. Some days it's a tidal wave, and I get taken out to sea. But this is literally my motivation every day. Before, in the morning, the first thing I do is check our Suicide Prevention Rocks group and see if there's anybody who's joined while I was sleeping. And before I go to bed, because I want to make sure people know that I'm looking at this all day long, it's the last thing I check. If anybody calls me and needs help, I'm there. I've sat on the phone 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning with people in the UK, wow. Texting back and forth to keep them from making the wrong move. I've called people up just because they've reached out. This is my mission. This is my mission in life. I'm retired military, and we always have a mission in the military. And when like anybody, when you retire, you're looking for something, some meaning in life. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I lost my son to find my meaning in life, but I don't want anybody else to lose their
Bill,
child.
you said it perfect to me about a week ago. You said, Johnny, this is not a club that I want anybody else to belong to. Yeah,
it's a terrible club, There's more people in it than most people realize, because we don't talk about suicide openly. And my mission is really just to keep people out of the club.
Right. So what is the Facebook page?
So the Facebook page is the Joshua York Legacy Foundation. We also have a subgroup, Suicide Prevention Rocks, kind of on the line of the Kindness Rock movement. We used rocks to help our children talk about the loss of their brother.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because that was my next question. I'm glad you led right into that.
Yeah, so our children were shutting down. We have 5 kids, including Josh, his older sister, and 2 younger sisters and a younger brother, ages 6 to 23, and our younger ones were shutting down. We couldn't get them to talk about anything. So my wife was looking at a whole bunch of different things on how to get them to talk. And so we did a couple little ceremonies, dropping rocks in a half full glass of water and telling a story about him. But about a year prior, we had painted kindness rocks in Ocean City, Maryland, and we decided, hey, let's do suicide prevention rocks. And after we painted them, and it was healing, my wife says, so we ought to put that on a Facebook page. And so I said, I'm going to create a group for that. It doesn't really relate to our mission, but it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll share what we're doing to heal ourselves with others. And the first week, that group grew by 250 people.
Wow.
And today we're over 4,400 people in 33 countries on all 6 populated continents, and all across the U.S. We have, I think it's about 3,600 across the U.S. in most states, and it's a motivator. I know we're reaching people, and that's how I connected with the gentleman in the UK. I've had conversations with folks in Australia, because this is not a U.S. problem. It's not a Maryland problem. It's not a Bill York problem. This is really a societal problem all around the world. I personally can't do it fast enough.
So this is not just for gay men and women. This is just for everybody, correct?
That's correct. I mean, our mission, we say we're there for all at-risk groups. So my son was in the LGBT community. He was a student, and I'm a veteran. So, and I have a lot of veteran friends. We lose a lot of veterans every day.
Thank you for serving our country, Bill.
Thank you. Veterans, we lose 26 a day in the VA system, approximately 13 a day that are not in the VA system. LGBT students are 3 times more likely than straight students to take their lives, and they're the second highest group because of their age and what they're going through developing as a human. So we got to reach everybody. And as a matter of fact, I had a Native American reservation reach out to me about 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to turn them away. Suicide in the Native American population is just as prevalent and just as harming and damaging to people as it is in our own communities. So if I can do anything to help anybody, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Bill, you're amazing. And I again, thank you for serving our country. But I mean, just as a man, I don't know if I would have had the strength to lose a child and do all this. And for all that, I thank you. And I'm sure every listener right now is listening to you right now, thanking you for what you and your family are doing to stop this and save just one life. So thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. I could be like anybody else. I could go into deep depression and live there. I could be angry that my son took his life. I'm not. I've turned my anger into anger at suicide, into passion to make a change in other people's lives and strengthen their lives with love. That's what I live my life for.
And you're educating people as well. I mean, I'm a straight white man, and I've learned more about the gay community in the last 3 weeks than I ever knew even existed. So, I mean,
Yeah.
for that, I thank you. It's like, I feel, just like you get pumped up. I learned something different. I learned something about something that I didn't know nothing about. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. You talk about the LGBT community, that age group, 13 to 24, that's the high risk. And, if you're listening out there and you have a child that you think may be in that community, try to have the conversation, because what I've seen over and over and over in talking to folks is a lot of children get pushed out of their home when they open up to their family. And it kills me, because I sit there and say, you've given birth to this child. You've raised the child to be the best person you can try to make them. You've invested years in their lives to make them successful and happy, and their happiness, if it's in the LGBT community, how can you turn them out?
Bill, how do you do it though?
Risk.
How do you do it? If there's a mom or a dad listening right now, or maybe a friend, how do you bring it up?
Well, first, whoever they're close to, you drop hints. Hey, if you have friends, you bring the friends around so that the adult friends who are in that community can get them to open up. In my case, when my son finally sat down and felt he needed to tell us, it was at dinner, and we finished dinner, and he was like, "Mom, Dad, I got something to tell you." And he started telling, and my wife jumped up, gave him a hug, crying, and said, "Josh, we've known, we've been waiting for you to talk to us. We're always here for you. We love you." And, when they finished talking, he looked at me kind of afraid. I said, "Josh, I got one thing to say." And, I could see the fear in his eyes, the fear of rejection. I said, "Josh, you're my son. I love you for who you are. I want you to be happy, and I will do anything for that. The only thing I ask of you is that when you find the person who fulfills your life, when you find them, introduce them to me, because without that, my life will never be fulfilled."
Yeah.
And a few weeks later, he brought him around, and he's another son, and his name's Josh. I mean, I got so many Joshes in my life. Got to start. I number them.
It's like JJ, huh?
Yeah. I got J1, my son J2, his partner.
One thing for Johnny's listeners, Johnny has listeners all over the world too, with massive numbers of people. And a lot of times an issue like suicide is something that we don't think about until we're directly impacted by it. But just a few numbers. If you look at the World Health Organization, Bill talked about it's not just a U.S. problem. It's estimated 1 million per year. And then if you look at some of the...
Wait a second. Did you say 1 million?
1 million people, according to the World Health Organization. And in the last 45 years, it's gone up 60%. I don't rehash all those for your benefit, Bill, but sometimes the listeners, may just so they can understand how big of an issue it is. And if you look at, from the United States perspective, 47,173 in 2017. That's 129 per day. It's the second leading cause of death in the age range that Bill mentioned of 15 to 24-year-olds. And what's really, those numbers are absolutely ridiculous. And that's why, Bill, you're doing what you're doing, and that's why I do what I'm doing. But another number that I found just as shocking is it's estimated that 1.3 million people attempt suicide. So That tells us, Johnny, that there is a hurting world out there. There is a world of people, and I love your transparency, Bill, because the community that you're talking about, there are so many young people who are really struggling, and someone hearing your story and hearing how your son, finally came out, and you encouraging them to come out and to be open and loving about that could really make a huge difference for a lot of those people. And these numbers are way too high. And as you hear those numbers, and I'm sure you know a lot of those numbers doing the work that you do, what other things do you envision the Joshua York Legacy Foundation, what other things do you have in the hopper for your organization to educate and to train and to reach out? I know you're going to do the scholarship, but are there other things that you guys have like in your plans to help go after these hurting people?
Josh, I tell you, I'm glad you asked that question, because wow, this is a fire truck ride. I mean, literally every day something pops up, and it's not me creating any of this. I'm on a path, and it's a path that a greater spirit has given me, and I follow it every day. If something pops up, I chase it. So we are partnering with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to get ourselves completely trained in everything that they provide for free in training, and then pass that out to everybody everywhere we can. So I'm hoping to have sometime at the end of 2019 or early in 2020, I want to have a national conference held in Baltimore or somewhere else in the country. And I want to bring together people for training, and I want to talk to professionals. What are you seeing? How are you approaching it? Because what we see in America is thousands of people impacted by suicide, and many people like me do start some kind of nonprofit to do something in their community. Mm-hmm. But we have thousands of groups like that, and they're not working together. Mm-hmm. AFSP does wonderful work for research and education and training and materials to help people understand and start talking.
Just for the listeners, mm-hmm. What is the AFSP? Just, I know what it is, but just let them know. So
it's American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP.org. They put out a lot of statistics. You can go out there and find out, where your state falls in the country, because Maryland, we're 47th out of 50. So, that's on the better end. Our suicide rate is lower than most of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Bill,
one every about 15 hours. So I think, I'm an accountant too. So, I think one every 15 hours in Maryland, if the average is about one every 12 minutes, oh my God, what's happening in Alaska, Washington, Montana?
Mm-hmm.
The numbers there have to be astronomical. And, they say their studies show that at least on average 100 people are affected by every suicide. You mentioned a number, 1.3 million attempts a year. Multiply that number by 100.
Mm-hmm.
Because 1.3 million means 13 million people are affected by someone who has attempted suicide.
Right.
That's horrific.
Right.
And that's only in the U.S. We're also partnering, Josh, with another organization. We're working really hard to bring peer-to-peer groups to high schools and colleges. This group is nationwide. They've worked hard to get into about 600 high schools and colleges. I don't want to give their name yet because we haven't locked it up. Can't wait to come public with it. But we're going to do everything we can just to help them spread their organization if they allow us to partner with them. And I really think it's going to be wonderful.
Bill, with technology the way that it is today, not everybody likes to pick up the phone and call. Obviously, if somebody is having a hard time, trying to find someone to talk to, or just even talking alone, can somebody text or email a facility and have somebody text or call or email back?
Yes, you have some major. You have the major hotlines out there. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, Veterans Crisis Line, the Trevor Project. I don't know if you ever heard of that. That's for the LGBT community. They're headquartered in D.C. All doing great work. All have phone numbers. They also have text lines, and they have hearing impaired lines. Those resources are on our website, which is www.joshuayorkfoundation.org. And there, if you hit any of these websites, you'll find these numbers. You'll find the ability to text. We're also trying, we have 3 pillars: education, outreach, and trying in every way possible to improve mental health accessibility. There are companies out there. There's 2 of them who are the major players right now who do text and email counseling across the country with trained professionals. That's the key, trained professionals, because they need to know this, how to help these people get out of that dark space. And we're trying to work with them. We need a lot of money to make it feasible to pay for people's. It's the cheapest we can get into that market is about $20,000. If we can get 200,000 to 300,000 followers on our Instagram and our Twitter accounts, they'll discount it even greater. They'll partner with us. So that's one of our goals. Grow Twitter, grow Instagram, get students coming to our sites and joining so that we can show our growth so that these companies will listen and partner with us.
How can people find you on Twitter and Instagram and all these things?
Pound JYLF and Pound JYLF Rocks, is probably the easiest way to look for us.
Okay.
The unfortunate part with Twitter and Instagram, they're new to me. I'm 52, Johnny, and this technology blows me away. So, we are not able to have the exact name across the spectrum. It's close, but it's like JYLF2, I think, on Twitter, and But if you keep looking for that JYLF, you'll find a search May Bill York, because I'm linked to all of them. And I'm more than happy to talk as much as possible. Every single person in my family works this every day.
And Bill, they can also find everything right through your website, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
Yep.
Bill, it's so inspiring to see what you've done with the organization, and we're going to, continue to talk about that. But I just had a question pop up, and forgive me for not asking you before, so it might be kind of a tough question, but are you okay with that? it's a
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Bill always says, he goes, Johnny, stop with that. He goes, I'm an open book. You can't offend me. You just ask me.
Yeah. Well,
So when you said that, Joshua, I was like, it reminded me of what Bill just told me 3 days ago.
Before you ask your question, Josh, I just want to make the listeners understand why I am that way. I cannot advocate open conversations, even the tough ones, if I'm not doing it myself. Yeah. I'm a military officer, retired. I lead by example at the best I can in everything I do. And unfortunately, I have to lead by example here.
Yeah. Amen.
As tough as it can be, I have to lead by example, because we have to start a greater dialogue in our society, or we're going to continue to see these numbers go up. We're going to continue to lose those that we love. Mm-hmm. You didn't mention it, Josh, but I lost my son in July. My ex-wife took her life last week. She was grieving so deeply that she took her life. I just buried her with our families. It pains me and it angers me at suicide. I'm going to beat this beast. If it's the last thing I do, and the beast better know, my family ages well. We're up in the 90s, so I got 40 more years to fight this.
That's awesome. Well, the question I had, and I love to hear, I'm sure you probably want to talk maybe more about your wife, but the question I had, I kind of like in my mind, I try to always imagine a person listening to a podcast, and I picture some mother who's in her late 40s or early 50s driving along in her car listening to us, and this is where it gets tough, is after your son, what happened with him, are there things now that you look back after you've educated yourself and started this organization and you've done all these different things and you were so much more knowledgeable about suicide prevention? Are there things now where you could look back and see maybe there were some signs that maybe you weren't aware of because you were, it wasn't something on your radar? Was there anything like that maybe you could share with the listeners that they could just keep their eyes open for?
Yeah, Josh, I'll tell you this is and me and you have had this conversation, all three of us really separately, but this is the tough part for me because, as I said, my son was trying to connect in the LGBT community and find people that were like him and that would love him for who he is and would be safe for him. And unfortunately, I hate these dating apps. He used a dating app. He took a risk to meet someone, and he was sexually assaulted. His first time trying to do this. And that is really what, in my mind, took my son's life. Mm-hmm. We did everything right. We caught up with him. We went to the hospital. We had the rape kit done. We had the police there. He was going into his senior year and did not want to have to go through a prosecution process in his senior year. He just wanted to live. Mm-hmm. And so he didn't prosecute. And he didn't want to go to counseling because he wanted to put it behind him. And we kept trying to encourage him. Eventually, when he got to college, he started becoming suicidal, being away from home for the first time, not getting past the assault. We finally got him into counseling. But do you know how hard it is for a college student as a freshman with no car on campus to find quality mental health care? Mm-hmm. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. He took an Uber 22 minutes each way, plus did a full-time college just to get mental health. It lasted the first semester. Second semester, he was trying to move past it again. And the day he took his life, some trigger happened. Some word was said, something created, brought the memory up. He talked to his partner about it on the way home. And when they got home, his partner went out to let the dogs out, and he went in and took his life. So in his case, it was triggers he was dealing with. In my ex-wife's case, there were so many signs, saying goodbye to people individually without any, in a way that people didn't connect that she was saying goodbye. Her talking about wanting to be with him, that she wanted answers. that she couldn't get because he wasn't here. Being on a vacation in Puerto Rico and saying, I don't want to be here. Everybody who she was talking to thought she meant in Puerto Rico. She was talking about on the earth in life. And so, if you know someone's at risk, it's better to just broach the subject and say, what are you thinking? I have to tell you one more story because it just popped into my head. The day I rushed my daughter and I to the hospital after we heard her mother had attempted suicide. And when we got there, she had already passed. And, I was breaking down. I needed to get away from my daughter so I didn't upset her. I went outside the hospital and called my wife, and I lit a cigarette because I needed to de-stress. And a young man came up behind me and said, "Hey, man, you got a cigarette?" I said, "Yeah, here you go." And I'm still talking to my wife. He stepped about 10 feet away from me, and he was obviously listening to my conversation. And he says to me, or to no one really, "Man, this is getting real." So when I got off the phone with my wife, I went over to him. I said, "Yeah, buddy, I really hope whoever you're here for is going to survive and be okay." And he said, "Man, I'm not here for anybody else. I'm here for myself." And I said, Are you thinking about hurting yourself?" And he just said, "Yeah, man, that's what I'm thinking about going in and checking myself in." I gave him a hug, backed up, grabbed him by the shoulders and said, "Do not take your own life. Do not hurt. I lost my son 5 months ago. His mother just took his life. That's why I'm here. You're here for a reason. You may not know exactly what it is, and there are plenty of people who love you. I'm one of them. If I had my business card on me, I'd give it to you because it has my phone number on it." And he looked at me and said, "What? You do that?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I can type it in my phone." So I gave him my number, and I said, "Listen, if they get you in and you need a visitor, call me. I'll come." And he said, "You do that?" I never had a visitor when I've been checked in. I said, "I'll be there." And I walked him in and got him registered, and I checked on him 2 more times to make sure he stayed. And he called.
You were like his angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Bill, the thing is about the both of those stories and about that person that you interacted with, that's so amazing and it's something that I always try to do when I'm speaking, is to help people realize that one of the biggest issues when it comes to suicide is the lie and the deception that A, nobody else is going through this, and B, that nobody cares. And those are the biggest traps, because we think that we're the only one that's screwed up, and we think that everybody else has got it together. That's a big misconception. And then also that nobody cares. And that's one of the things that is just so heartbreaking about these stories, is you have all these amazing people who buy into this deception that causes them to have a permanent solution to a temporary problem, basically. And that's the thing that I think is, the most heartbreaking, is that it's based on a deception. And because it's not true. Like the guy that you talked to, he was standing outside smoking a cigarette, and he met somebody that changed his life forever because you made him believe that he was worth it. Now, he had no idea, I'm sure, what you were going through, but just in all of these situations, in the 47,000 plus Americans every year that do it, I know there's a lot of mental health. There's a lot of that goes into it, yes, but suicide is never the right answer.
Right.
No matter what you're going through, that's never the right answer.
And it's always, it's always that personal moment, And Josh, I can tell you, I think, for me, it's screaming from the mountaintop. It's raising the dialogue. And I say that because when I was in the Air Force, I was a criminal investigator. And this was early 90s, the statistics for sexual assault on women at that point was 3 out of 5 women up before the age of 18 would have some level of sexual assault, from a terrible rape to, someone, touching them inappropriately. Those numbers are coming down. Why? Because people talk about it, and it's okay. We have the Me Too movement. People are coming out and saying this is not right. That's what I think needs to happen. But I would ask you this. You've been doing this for, 10, 15 years now?
Yeah.
I'll take any recommendation you got on how we can make it better, because you've got more experience.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, is talking about it. I think if somebody sees somebody on the stage, or they see you, a guy who's got it all together, from the outside looking in, and they hear someone who's got a lot of things figured out saying, you know what? I do have a lot of great things in my life, but there was a season of my life where I was just where you are. And I felt just as bad. I felt just as dark. And then when the light came on, I was so excited. I decided that I had to get the word out about that life is a lot more fun than we think in those dark moments, And so I think that you hit the nail on the head. Is the part of the deception is the taboo. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want people to know what we're going through, and it's quiet, it's discreet. And I understand a lot of that with people, but the reality is as you mentioned with the Me Too movement, when people see, you know what, other people feel this way, other people are going through what I'm doing, when they see that, it helps them feel okay with where they're at.
They feel normal.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I remember when I was about 19, I was around your son's age when I had some of my darkest seasons of my life. And I was talking to this girl I went to high school with, and she was the homecoming queen. She won the beauty pageant in my hometown. She's a beautiful girl, smart. And I remember talking to her at college, because we went to the same school after high school. And she was telling me about how she struggled so much with depression. And I was in shock, because I thought, wait a minute, this is the smartest, the cutest, the nicest, the friendliest, the most popular. But that was an aha moment for me, that I realized that I'm not the only one that's going through this. And that makes it okay for me to go through it. And I can go through it with confidence and passion, and I can come out the other side because I'm not alone.
Right. Amen.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's removed the stereotypes right there.
Yep.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because we have stereotypes. Oh, this person has something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I
can tell you.
how many celebrities just lately have committed
Right.
suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here's people that literally have it together. They have money, they have fame, they have everything.
Mm-hmm.
My first wife was a licensed clinical social worker in a hospital. She knew every resource that was available to her. She was being treated by a psychiatrist to try to get past the grief. She had tons of friends who are social workers, nurses, doctors. Her partner's one of the top doctors in one of the hospitals in Baltimore. And she still didn't help herself,
Right.
because she was more concerned, I think, of how people would view her, and wanting to have this connection with her son who took his life. I can't be angry at her. I didn't love her romantically anymore, but I loved her as a person.
Right.
She's a
Right.
mother of children. I grieve for her. I don't like her decision. I can't change it, but I can change other people's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I can help them see the light. Get out of the darkness, see the light, and understand that we got to get rid of the stigma. We got to talk about it.
Hey.
And there's a lot of causes, but it's the moment. It's that one split second when you're making that poor, bad, permanent choice that you got to get past. You can't allow yourself that 1 second.
Bill, I want you to, I'm going to kind of lighten things up a little bit, because I almost cried twice right there in those few stories. But I want you, because it's so important for me and the listeners to understand what your son was like. At the age of 6, you guys bought a family boat. And then
Yes.
later on in life, he loved the water so much, you actually gave him your boat, correct?
I sold it to his partner for less than what it was, what I had in it to fix it up. I was had fixed it up to sell it, and I wanted it to him to continue to enjoy it if it could. And when his partner said, "Hey, can I buy it from you?" I'm like, "Yeah, how much you want for it?" And I had it listed for almost $20,000. He said, "I can't afford that." I said, "I didn't ask you to buy it for that much. If you're going to buy it, you just give me what I got into it. That's the beauty of it, because you get to enjoy it."
Talk about the day that Josh grabbed some seaweed, and what he said to the other Josh.
Yeah, so they had been talking about getting married when my Josh, graduated college, and they spent so much time on the boat and at the beaches around it, up and down the East Coast, that one day they were out in the water, and my son pulled up some seaweed and weaved it into a little ring and proposed to him in the water. So and of course he said yes, but from that day forward, they called themselves sea husbands. So when they're out on the water, they treated each other as any married couple would, and enjoyed the future of getting married. They were fantasizing about it, thinking what it would be like. But as soon as they step back on shore, they look at each other and treat each other like friends and joke about, well, I don't got to listen to you. My sea husband's, left on the boat. So it was, and I learned about that after his death.
Oh, really?
I learned so many stories. I actually reached out to every single person who was on Facebook, and then because people were coming up to me telling me things about my son that I didn't know, because my relationship was father to son, not friend to friend, lover to lover, whatever. I learned so much about my son. I learned how many lives he had touched. I had people come up to him and say, if it wasn't for Josh, I wouldn't be sober 3 years.
Wow.
If it wasn't for Josh, I'd have hurt myself. If it wasn't for Josh, I wouldn't have stayed in college. Over and over. I still get them once in a while. My hair's standing up on my arm.
Yeah, well, mine too.
And that's why we called it the Joshua York Legacy Foundation. Let me tell you something. Nobody ever wants to forget the person who took their life. And if you're out there listening, you're trying to figure out how to connect with people who've lost a child, lost a parent, say their name. Say the person who passed the name, because we think about them every single day, and we just want to know that other people are. Joshua York Legacy Foundation. This isn't all about Josh. It's our way of taking the good that was in him and spreading it as far and wide as we can.
I'm probably going to be speaking for Josh, you, and Bill, you as well, and I know, Paul, you're listening. First of all, let me say this. If you're listening and you're feeling like this, I want you to know that you matter. I want you to know that you are special. And if you right now are thinking about hurting yourself, call me, reach out to me. Joshua, I know that you're there all the time for people. Bill and Paul, I want you to know that, you know what? If anybody is feeling that way, there's 4 people on this podcast right now that care about you, that love you for who you are. And I just want you to know that you're special. Bill, I had to say it, and I just think it's so important. People don't hear it enough that they are special, that they're wanted, that they're needed. And I'm letting you know, Joshua, I'm telling you, Bill, I'm telling you, Paul, I'm telling you guys matter to me. You're special to me. Mm-hmm. And the people that are listening, you are special. Man, it needs to be said. I mean, and I appreciate you sharing these stories about your son and about what you're after.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's true. Everybody needs to hear it. We weren't born onto this earth for nothing. We have something to give. I call it our superpower. Everybody's got a superpower. And if you haven't found it, don't stop searching, because it's out there.
I heard a line the other day that I thought was amazing. It was 2 most important days in your life are the day that you were born and the day that you find out why.
Right. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is good. I also heard something else. And Bill, this is right from the eulogy of your son. You started the eulogy off by a quote from a childhood friend. And she quoted to you one time, and she said to you, "I am who I am. I won't be this way forever, but for now, I am, and it's okay." Again, the quote, again, she told you, "I am who I am. I won't be this way forever, but for now, I am, and it's okay."
Yes. She lost her husband, and she figured that out through the loss of her husband. And a couple days after I found out about my son's loss, she passed that on to me, and it impacted me so deeply that that's what I use many days just to get through the day, because it's okay if I'm sad. It's okay if I'm happy. It's okay if I'm helping somebody else, and no matter what my mood, it's okay, because it's only a moment in time, and it'll pass. I use the analogy, and I went to a motivational speaker one time, and I heard this analogy, and I use it now about the buffalo and cows out in Nebraska at the foot of the Rockies. A cow runs from the storm; they're in it forever. Buffaloes run towards the storm. They run through the storm. They face their fears and anxieties, and it passes quicker. And that's what I try to do. If I'm having a bad moment, I focus and say, okay, what is it? What can I do to change it? And then I try to change it.
Bill, people often ask me, and Joshua, you know this, as being, motivational speakers, they're like, do you ever have a bad day? And I'm like, absolutely. I have bad days just like everybody else. I go, and I love bad days. And they're like, what the heck is wrong with you? I'm like, and they're like, why would you even say that? I'm like, I love bad days because when I have a bad day, I know there's millions of other people that are feeling the exact same way, and I turn it into a part in my talk. So I learn from my own hurt or my own fears, and I'm able to get on stage and talk about them. Joshua, I joke around all the time. I'm like, we got the best job in the world. We get to tell our problems and motivate people by the things that we feel every single day.
Yeah, it's hard to really learn a big lesson without some pain, right?
Right, that's right. And
let's face it, guys. If we don't have bad days, we never know the greatness of a good day.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I always say, they're like, hey, that old cliche. I want to climb that mountain. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to climb the mountain with as many friends and people I can, because I don't want to be at the top alone. Mm-hmm. I want to take as many people with me to the top of that mountain and be able to scream like you are, Bill. Scream and shout and inspire and motivate like you. And you are such an inspiration. I know I've said it over and over again, but you are, and I appreciate you. I want you to share just another story about your son. I know I kind of put you on the spot, Josh was. I mean, I'm looking at a picture of him right now, and he had those. He has blue eyes like I do, and people say that they pierced right through you, and he had those like baby blue eyes.
Yeah, I'll share a great one with you. His baby blue eyes when he was born, I could go to any mall, and walk through the mall, and every single woman would stop to Google over him. He was like a chick magnet from day one. I was married, but it was just amazing to me that his eyes just sucked you in. And one time, his mother and my sister-in-law were going to go shopping at a local open. They call it the Avenue, and there was a new beer joint that just opened up, a brewing company. And my brother-in-law was into home brewing. He says, "Hey, Bill, let's go to the Red Brick Station." And my father-in-law was like, "Yeah, we'll go there." I'm like, "What?" I'm carrying Josh. I'm like, "What are we doing there?" Let's just go. We'll get a table. Well, we walked into the bar, and I put him up on the corner of the bar. So at 6 months old, he was at the bar the first time, and the three of us, myself, his father, his uncle, who was his godfather, and his grandfather, shared a beer in his honor, at that time. And I'll never forget when his mother walked in. She wasn't not happy. Neither were the other wives.
I love the fact that you love beer, because it seems like every time I talk to you in the evening that you and your wife are sitting on the front porch drinking a beer or having a glass of wine. You brought up beer, and I want you to bring this up because you brought something up to me yesterday, and it was kind of funny because I was talking to my daughter, and those of you that have been listening to me now for 25 episodes know that my daughter is a clinical psychologist. And I was telling her, Bill, about, I don't remember if it was the Josh wine or if it was the beer from Michigan that gives a percentage back to helping suicide victims.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring it up. That is Fulton, Fulton Brewing Company. The beer is called Spectre, and it is a suicide awareness prevention beer. They lost one of their employees to suicide, and in response to that they brewed a special beer in his honor, and they renamed it to Spectre. And every sale, $1 of it goes to suicide prevention and awareness through AFSP. And I never knew about it. A friend of my wife's is a distributor. We were looking for stuff to put behind a fundraising effort, and he brought over this beer, and we were floored by it. And it's amazing that it's out there. So yeah. Spectre Beer for Fulton Brewing Company.
All right.
Check it out.
Thanks. Just because every time I hear you say beer, or even hear the word beer now, I think of you. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing.
Bill, don't let Johnny fool you. He likes them too.
I will say I come up with my best material after, a couple glasses of wine or a couple beers, But one thing I do want to, because literally we are down to like 5 or 6 minutes, and I really want people to know how to get a hold of you. I want you to talk about the foundation. If there's anything that we missed, this time is yours. And it's like I told you before we even started the podcast, this hour is about you and about what you're doing. So Bill, please let everybody know how they can, find you.
So Johnny, I appreciate that. And we are again on Facebook at the Joshua York Legacy Foundation. And on the website at www.joshuayorkfoundation.org. There's connections out there for Twitter and Instagram. We are out there trying to make a difference. So, we are early on. We're just under 6 months old. We've raised just over $20,000.
Man, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a wild ride. But we're making a difference, and we need the communities to make a difference. So I can tell you, if somebody reaches out to me, which some folks have, if I can help them, I'll do everything I can to do it. And you can PM me through Facebook or send an email through the website. We respond to them. We do.
And PM is personal message.
Yeah. Yes, personal messages. So Facebook Messenger. Once I get reached to, I typically give my cell phone to the people, and we try to have a conversation. So,
Bill, for all the people all over the world and all over the country listening to the podcast, if they want to get involved, what can they do? If they want to get involved in their community, if they want to get involved in your organization, if they want to get involved in suicide as a whole, maybe talk about what they could do locally, maybe what they could do to help you guys out with your mission. And if, what can people do to take that next step to help organizations? Maybe they don't want to get involved themselves with all their time. Maybe they do, but what options are out there for people to help others in these spots?
So I think there's 3 basic ones. Talk. Share the information. If you're comfortable with it, push it out. Get people talking. There's no cost in that, just a little bit of time. 2, donate. You can donate to the Joshua York Legacy Foundation, AFSP, or any local group, because they're out there. 3, we do stuff like suicide prevention rocks. We take it to schools and paint rocks. If you donate $50 to Joshua York Foundation, we can buy the supplies for a school and ship them to them. That's all it takes. That's what we're about. We're about raising the conversation. And if you have a good idea, or even an idea you're like maybe about, send it to me, because I can tell you there's a lot of great ideas out there, and I want to run with every one of them. I just got to raise the fund and make it happen.
Bill, what's your mission for the foundation?
Our mission is to provide education, outreach, and mental health accessibility. And I tell you, to do the mental health accessibility, that's the hard one, Johnny. It takes a lot of money, thousands of dollars, if you just to have it there to pay for other people's health care. If we can get to that point, it takes a lot of money to positively interrupt the industry the way it's set up, to make it more accessible. That's my long-term goal. And I think it's going to take $1 to $3 million to do it in 3 to 5 years to get there. And that's if I'm working it hard. We have a lot of people in the mental health care industry and in the healthcare industry, so we understand it, from both the provider and the other one. We're developing a training program for college students, how to navigate your healthcare, because how many college students don't tell their parents that they're mentally in trouble with self-harm, right?
Well, it's such a challenging season of your life. I mean, you went from mom and dad taking care of. I mean, that was my darkest season by far, and because you get out of the house and then you're by yourself and you feel like everyone else has got it together. And yeah, so I think that's just amazing, you know, what you guys are doing with the college students too, because that's such a huge community.
I'm 52. I don't even understand it. You know, thankfully my wife is in the industry.
Yeah.
She takes care of it all because I get so frustrated with it. I'm like, you got to take care of this.
It's always good to have somebody on the inside.
Yeah, I can't even bring myself to learn it, you know, because I get so frustrated.
I love that line you used, to positively interrupt the system how it is.
Right.
I love that because it does need to be interrupted positively.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's ways to do that, you know, through text and talk. You know, if I have to and I can raise the money, I will find somebody to create a HMO or insurance group to lower the cost and get it out to people. That is the hardest way to do it, but it's got to change, whether it's through the government, through the providers, or through our own self-action. I'm gonna make it happen.
Bill, I just want to take a second, and if you are a parent listening right now, I challenge you. Right now. Bill just said something a couple minutes ago, and he said communication, and we don't do enough of it. Pick up your phone and text or call your child and just say that you love them.
Yeah.
That's it. Just I challenge you right now to just text or call 3 people and just tell them that you care. Let them know that they matter. Let them know that they're special. Sometimes that's all it takes.
That's true.
Bill, we're down to just a couple minutes, and I want you to end this podcast with a just another story about your son. I mean, we are leaving his legacy right now on this podcast, or part of it, and I just want you to end the podcast with just another story about Josh.
You know, Josh was a beautiful person. Yeah, and his smile was captivating. And he was the life of a party. I mean, he always reached out to everyone. He was always caring and loving.
So was he caring and loving? Was he also like the class clown too? Because he looked like that kid that would always make you smile.
He was not the class clown. That's the interesting part. He had a vibrant life about him. You know, and he just cared. He just cared. You know, and he helped other people. And that's I mean, there's so many people that he helped and that we continue to help through him and his foundation. You know, anybody who's going to go out to the website, I have to tell you this, you're going to see a picture of my son in front of wings that were Global Wing Project down in DC, taken 3 weeks before his life. I actually have a video. So it's just a 10-second shot of him, you know, basically waving his arms like he's flying.
Oh, that's cool.
It's beautiful. And that picture sums it up. There's also another one on the Facebook page when he was just a little boy swimming, and we had underwater camera, and the bubbles coming out of his mouth are in the shape of a praying angel.
Oh, that's awesome.
We never noticed that. My sister was helping get pictures together. That's how we found that picture. It's just, you know, he had angels on his side his entire life.
Yeah.
And the lessons that he had to learn through life, you know, he's passed on to us. And I just want to pass them on to everybody else.
That's awesome. Joshua, do you have any closing remarks or?
I think that, you know, first of all, I just happy to be with you guys. As far as like closing remarks, I just, you know, I think you're awesome, Bill. I mean, the situation that you've gone through and everything, the way you've handled it, as somebody who makes their living helping people, I feel like I have an amazing teammate that's on the same team and rowing in the same direction, you know. And to reiterate what Johnny said before, to anybody who out there listening that feels like there is no light and they're in darkness, that's just not true, and reach out. And, you know, if you're thinking about getting involved and you want to make a difference, you know, Bill is he's one of those guys that dots every I and crosses every T. His organization is, you know, fully legit, and he does everything by the book. So it's a really great organization, and I strongly suggest anybody, to donate to them. If you don't live nearby, to donate. If you have ideas, take him up on his offer. He is trying to do some amazing work to help a bunch of hurting people, and getting involved and helping him is one of the best ways that you can get yourself in the game. So that would be my message to the listeners.
And Paul downstairs putting this whole thing together, that puts Paul, you put together all my podcasts. So
Yes.
Do you have any closing remarks?
I think one of the big things, just to reiterate what was being said, because there's so much good stuff. But one of the things is there's that unspoken stigma that people don't come forward. So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in understanding this, but when somebody is speaking in ways that might be harmful, things like that, if you're feeling that way for self-harm, or you're having that bad time and don't know what to do, be open about it. People care about you. Move in a direction that is seeking for help, and it isn't something to be ashamed of.
Amen to that.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
And Bill, I know that I thought you had just one last thing to say before we wrap things up.
Yeah, Johnny, I just wanted to thank all three of you guys. Josh, I said it at the beginning, you're such an inspiration to me on how, we can get there. And I look forward to getting there together, because I feel like I've known you guys, since I was a little kid. That's and that's wonderful. And Johnny, this is a platform that isn't just about my foundation. It's about helping everyone that we can. And I appreciate the opportunity for this. And Paul, just nice meeting you for the first time.
Nice meeting you too.
I'm going to end this with another quote, Bill, from your friend. And she said, and you used this in Josh's eulogy, and you said, or she said, it's not the most intelligent or the strongest who survive, but those who are able to adapt. Again, it's not the most intelligent or the strongest who survive, but those who are able to adapt. I just want to thank all three of you. Again, Bill, you're such an inspiration. Again, another great episode of the Outstanding Life podcast. And I want to let all of you know that you can download all my podcasts. You can go to motivationalcowboy.com. You can get them all there. You can go to SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Outstanding Life podcast. You can go to Apple Podcasts. I mean, they're everywhere. And we talk about everything on this. I joke around all the time. I'm like, man, I just get to hang out with a bunch of cool guys and cool girls, some cool friends, and just talk. And that's all this podcast is. And if you want to download it, cool. If you want to share it, that would be awesome. And if you have any ideas at all about things that we could cover, man, let me know. Again, you can check everything out at motivationalcowboy.com. Joshua, Bill, Paul, thank you guys so much. And we'll see you next time on the Outstanding Life podcast. See you guys later.